Okay. Reuven Yates. Okay. As we get gradually, I think it's going to take us almost all day today just to change back.
It was up to one.
Yeah. No, we've got little pitzellas, a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, so didn't think it was wise to. Okay, start with the year of learning. Sponsors: Suwanarni Gerlich in memory of Malka Perlman and Philip Mann, Yisrael Dev ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Yosef Meir ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, and your Rivka Pro Rosna ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch in memory of family murdered in the Holocaust. Arav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah ben Ephraim, Yisrael Dev ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Leslie and Gail Kaplan in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Sedal Irving and Pro Kaplan, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova Bat Yisrael Dov in her memory, Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata Bat Asher, friends of Nina Moinester, Nechama Asna Bat Yitzvek Aharon, many friends of Stephen Vigdal, Zecher Nishmat Simcha Melech Ben Meir Leib Halevi, friends of Marcy Kurtz in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha. A month of learning by Lydia and Abe Krause's many friends in honor of their 50th anniversary. David and Mendel Cheslow in memory of his father, Moshe ben Ruvain Mordechai. Susan and Ruvain Podolsky in memory of her father, Simcha Bunam ben Yeshua. A week of learning by David and Sharon Carpel. Hey, there you are, Ruvain. Good morning. Okay, Rabbi Tzvi and Robin Carpel in memory of David and Tzvi's mother, Malka bat Mordechai. Dr. Mark Scher in memory of his father, Mordechai ben Menachem Lanish. Ruth Kosman in memory of her husband, Shmuel ben Yitzchak. Carol and David Kaplan in memory of Hannah and Ron Goldberg's daughter, Tamar Yenta bat Yerachmiel Yitzchak. Judy Iger in memory of her husband, Aaron ben Shlomo Michael. Enya and Shmuel Novik in memory of her father, Zeb ben Shimshon. Meir and Sarah Breben, Michael and Golda Breben, in memory of Meir and Michael's mother, Bela bat Elimelech. Isaac and Eda Novik, in memory of his father, Eliezer Yaakov ben Mordechai Tzvi. Today is the 24th of the month, and we have a day of learning by Mel Grossman in memory of his father, Menachem Manish ben Yehuda. Shemas Heavenly, Crank Rafia Velti Yeshiva Shematz Leah, and L'chol B'nai Yisrael, a good gebench John.
Amen.
Okay, so let me get our stuff together and we'll start at a good place, right? I would like us to start on the bottom of Mem Zion Amud Beis. Okay, I think that's the best place to start. Okay, we had a Gemara there, about 3-4 lines up. Right, Ha Rabbi Shimon ben Eliezer. Right, Ha Rabbanan. One view is Rabbi Shimon, one Rabbanan. The Tanya, as they was taught, Ubachta et aviha ve'et ima. Okay, Gemara is going to go back now to discuss. We use the Yafat Toar as a model, right, as an example in terms of the question of conversion. Okay, because it seemed to imply that without spelling out clearly in the psukim, that she did not do anything. I mean, except for what she had to do to change her status as a captive of war. Okay, but then what would allow her then to be married to a Jew? And so coming back to that whole issue, okay, what happens? Citing without reading that whole section, it starts off and it's going to discuss section by section of the Yafat Toar segment. Okay, so it starts off with Bachtata viha vi'et ima. Okay, we say that she must cry for her father and her mother, V'gomer. But medvarim amorim, what are we talking about? Shelo kibla lea, okay, that she did not accept Judaism. Aval kibla lea, But if she did accept Judaism, okay, matbila, we immerse her, umutar bamiyad, and then the one is permitted to have relations with her right away. Okay, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, what does he say? Afal pi shelo kibla aleh. Okay, even though she did not accept Judaism, what do? Kofa, we force her to accept Judaism. Umat bilah, and immerse her, l'shem shifchut, initially for the status of a servant. Okay, v'chozer umat bilah l'shem shichrur, and then afterwards we immerse her a second time for the purpose of her becoming a free person, umeshachrara, and then we free her, okay, and just we roll over, umutar bamiyad, and then he would be permitted to have relations with her. In other words, marry her right away.
Okay. She's Jewish.
Because then she's Jewish, right? So it would appear initially from this statement of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar that he would hold that a single immersion is not sufficient. Okay? We saw previously in the Gemara that there were those who had the view that one could immerse, okay? And it was based on the intent of the immerser, the person going in the water. Okay, particularly if it was a servant, if the servant had the intent, and especially if they explicitly said that they were doing so for the sake of freedom, that immersion, okay, was valid. Okay, all right. So having said that, okay, Rabbi Shimon's view seems to be different from that perspective, right? Because here he's saying, in the case of the Yafat Torah. Now, we might ask the question very quickly, but without going into a lot of detail. Is that means that Yafat Torah is a unique situation? It's Yotzei Dofen, okay? Or do we say, and that's why he's saying that it appeared to have to have been done twice? Or is he just saying that that's his view in all cases? We don't know, right? Maybe the Gemara is going to address, right? Ruvain, you with me?
Yes, I am.
All right, great. All right, so let's go on now on the top of Memchet, right? Which is today's daf. Okay, Amar Rav. This is Rav is tonight. Come with Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. What's his reasoning? Okay, so he would seems the Gemara is concerned. Dichtiv, why? Because it says in that same section, okay, elsewhere actually, well, okay, that when one has purchases a slave, right, that one is acquired through money. Okay, but we know elsewhere the Gemara already told us that in general it has to be through money and tefillah. We had that the other day. So what happens? Says the Gemara, Eved Ish, v'lo Eved Isha. Does this apply then only to a male slave and not to a female slave? Ela Eved Ish atamal ba'al, but a male slave, one is permitted to circumcise him even against his will. Ve'i atamal ben ish ba'al korcho. But elsewhere we learn that a person is not permitted to circumcise against his the rabbana. What about the rabbi? In other words, he can't circumcise a Gentile adult against their will. And the slave is a Nisriya. Okay? So how can you do that? The rabbanan and advice. The same way you can't do circumcision on an adult Gentile male. So likewise, you cannot circumcise an adult male slave. Ella, but rather Hakativ, written, called Eved, which would seem to say that when the person is a servant, right, and an adult
You can
slave,
perform the Mila.
right? So we have, right? So it seems to contradict. So the
Right.
Gemara tells us, "Ahumi the Kaddish Shmuel." We need that phrase called Eved Ish, and that phrase also. We need both phrases here, okay, to satisfy something said by Shmuel. What? The Da'amah Shmuel says is Hamafkir Abdo, okay? One who, let's say, puts his slave down, right? For the moment, we use that translation. Say in other words, if he doesn't use the person in their slave status, the ultimate implication seems he's allowing that person to become a free man. Okay? Ve'ein sarich dekor. And in that situation, one does not need to give a document. We'll say Shnamar, as it says elsewhere, Kol Eved Is Miknat Kesef. Okay? That any slave, that's a man, he has been purchased through money. Eved Ish, there we're talking about a male slave, below Eved Isha, and not a female slave. Ella, rather, Eved Sheyesh Lo Yeshut, the Rabo, a love karui, rather a slave that is under the authority, right? I'm going to put that of his master. That is who we call a slave. V'she'ein reshut l'rabo alav. But if his master does not have authority over him, ein karui eved, he is not considered to be a slave. Okay. Now,
Therefore, you.
well,
He doesn't have reshus over him because he was mafter him. That's the whole point. That's
exactly
the proof.
He doesn't have proof because he was mafter him, but that doesn't necessarily make him a Jew.
No, it just means he doesn't have reshus over him.
Okay, right? So what happened? Okay, Mad Kifla Rav Papa. So Rav Papa challenges it and says as follows. Hey, more, I might say as follows. D'shema'at lahu l'Rabbanan b'yafat Torah. This is what I might say we could learn this, okay, regarding what the rabbis define as the status of the Yafat Torah. De lo shaycha b'mitzvot, where she is not under the, let's say, obligation of mitzvot. Eved, the shayach, but a male slave who, when they are taken at purchase and they are immersed, they do become chayav a certain amount of mitzvot. We said just like a woman. Okay, there's level of mitzvah observance is at that. Let's call it level. Hachinami here too. Da'afilu rabbanan mo. In this case, also, in other words, implying perhaps with regard to Torah, right, that the rabbis acknowledge the following. Tanya, it's hot and brighter. Echad ger, echad lokeach eved, oved kochav. The same applies to a convert or to apply to a slave purchased from Gentiles. Tzrich lekabeh, they must accept, in other words, the performance of mitzvot. Ha lokeach miYisrael. But when one purchases a, let's say, servant or slave from a fellow Jew, ein sarich lekabeh, they do not have to take on mitzvot. Okay, why is that the case? We assume if I purchase a slave from you, Chaim, right? He's already been immersed, purchased and immersed. Okay, so he's already observing a certain level of mitzvot. All I have to do then is pay you the money. Okay, I shouldn't have to, so to speak, re-immerse. Okay, money. According to whom was that? Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Were that to be the view of Rabbi Shimon Elazar, Ha'omer Lokeach min ha'oved kochavim, who says that one who purchases from Gentiles, Nami ein sarach lekabel. Also, one doesn't have to have that slave take on mitzvah. Elelav.
Addiction to
That's right.
from
From what he said
he didn't-
before.
he have a-
Right, before he had to dip him once to be a slave,
Right?
and dip him once separate to be a freeman, which would seem to imply, right, that when he dipped him the first time, okay, yes, he was a slave, but also he was expecting him to be observant of certain. So we still have a problem with Rabbi Shimon ben. Okay, Elalab, but Rabbanan. No, that must be the view of the rabbis then. Ushmamina. We therefore learn from this. Zilokeach min ha'oved kochavim, that one who purchases a slave from a Gentile, tzrich lekabel, the slave must then take on mitzvot. Aval lokeach mi Yisrael, but purchasing a slave from other Jews, ein sarich lekabel. One does not need to require the slave to take it because it's already right. Ve'elakat, but rather this is problematic. Echad ger ve'echad evet mishuchrar. But our problem then is we said previously, right, that the same law applies to a convert and also applies to a freed slave. So how could that be, right? If the freed slave, there should be a full Jew. Okay? So the Gemara says, Ki Tanya Hahi, when that particular statement, that part of a Braita was made, Le'inyan Tfilah. Now that was taught only in regards to the issue of immersion. It really wasn't taught in regards to acceptance of mitzvah.
Acceptance.
Right? Namely, that both the convert and the slave to become free needed tefillah. That was the parallel. Okay, we go on now to a new piece in the Gemara, the new Braita, Anu Rabbanan. We come back, however, that this is really not such a new piece because it's really coming back to our discussion of the Yafat Torah. We're just going on and discussing additional parts of that section from Chumash. V'galta et ha'isha v'alta et sifina. So we say that she has to cut her hair and she has to do something to her nails. What does it mean she does something to her? See why I would say it that way? Rabbi Elazar Omer to coats. According to Rabbi Elazar, she has to cut her nails. Rabbi Akiva Omer Tagdil. According to Rabbi Akiva, he says she has to let her nails grow. Okay.
The word also means doing something which changes. If you let it grow, you're doing nothing.
Wait. The Gemara is going to, good question. Gemara is going to raise that, not the question in that manner, but it's going to raise that issue. Okay, but what does it mean that she has to do something? Okay, can we make a parallel between cutting hair and doing something to nails? Somebody is going to say, if you're making the hair shorter, it should imply the same thing in regarding to the nails. Okay? Somebody else is going to say, no, I interpret it another way. Now we're ready to jump back. Okay? All right, good question. Good point. Okay? what happens? Amar Rabbi Elazar. Let's hear his view. Why did he say that? Right? Ne'emra asiya barosh v'ne'emra asiya b'tzipornayim. The Torah talks about doing something regarding the head and says also a deed regarding the nails. Malahalan ha'avara. The same way as Rabbi Elazar talking about removal of hair, afkan ha'avara. So too, it must mean removal regarding the nails. That's why he comes to cutting it. Right. Rabbi Akiva Omer says, Rabbi Akiva, ne'emar asiya barosh, v'ne'emar asiya b'tzipornayim. Yes, indeed, says Rabbi Akiva. It says doing a deed regarding the head and doing the deed regarding the nails. Malahalan nivu, where that deed results in the woman becoming repulsive. Afkan nivu. So here too, by cutting her hair and letting her fingernails, think of okay, all right, becomes repulsive. Okay, Varaya l'divrei Rabbi Elazar, but there seems to be a suggested source support view of Rabbi Elazar, namely a pasuk in the Navi, right? Okay, Fiboshet ben Yarad likrat hamelech lo asa raglav v'lo asa sfam. And it implies that when Mephibosheth, son of Saul, came to see David, he did not do anything to his or to his mustache. My asi. What then do we understand from that phrase? Ha'avara, removal. Okay, that's the case. So now we move on to another piece from Yifat Torah. Tanu Rabbanan, says the Braita. Ubachtata viha ve'etima. She had to cry, says the text, for her father and her mother. Now, the Gemara is going to continue. I know it looks long, okay? And it is a little, it's basically going to take section by section phrases about Yifat Torah and try to define it. That's how the Gemara is going to go. Rabbi Elazar, Omer, Aviha, Aviyam, Ima, Mash. When it says her father, it means literally her father.
What else does it mean?
What?
She should cry for her mother. She cry for her father. What else does it mean?
Well, wait. Rabbi Akiva.
Oh, only her physical father.
Okay, in other words, they're saying it had, Rabbi Elazar is saying literally her physical parents. Why? Because if you convert, it ends her relationship with them, right?
The biological parent.
Her biological, right? Rabbi Akiva Omer, Aviha ve'im zo avodat kochavim. Remember, she's given her Gentile status. V'chein hu Omer, and thus he said, again, an interesting text, Omer eitz avi gomer. Okay, and citing the fact that that was a form of worship. Okay, what happens next? Yerech Yamin. How long did she have to go through this, let's call it mourning period, right? It says Yerech Yamim, which we normally might translate as a month of days. Okay? Yerech Shloshim. Yerech is 30 days. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Tish'im Yom. He says it's 9 days. Yerech is 30. Yamim, plural, how? Shloshim, another 30. Va'achar, and after that, Shloshim, another 30 days. So that's where he gets 90 days. Tifla Ravina. And Ravina challenged this. Ema, I would say, Yerech Shloshim, the Yerech is 30. Yamim Shloshim, and fine, the days means 30. right? Va'achar kach, and after that, kihani, like it is kasha. But that's problematic then,
300 is the same as the first 60.
right?
Another 60 days, not another 30.
Right?
Kihani, another
So,
60.
so it's 60 days, right?
Right.
So in other words,
So it'll be 120 days in total.
30, and 30 is 60, and the
Right.
achar kach then is like these,
Which
okay?
is another 60, which is
60 days.
120, and that's problematic.
Right. Kasha, indeed, that's problematic, right? So what happens? Does the Gemara come to an answer? No. Okay.
No.
Another Rabbanan, another Braita. Mekaymin avdim she'inam malim divrei Rabbi Yishmael. According to this Braita, one can maintain slaves that are not circumcised. This is the view of Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi
In other
Akiva,
words, not only circumcised, but they don't keep mitzvahs.
they remain as Gentiles. That's the implication. Okay?
So it's a bad influence. Like,
You see, Rabbi Akiva Omer Ein Mekaymin. According to Rabbi Akiva, you cannot maintain them, keep them whatsoever. Okay? Amar le Rabbi Yishmael. And Rabbi Yishmael comes back to him and says, Harehu Omer, but it says elsewhere, Vayinafesh ben Amitcha, okay, that you should allow the son of your servant to rest. Okay? In other words, that those servants must be allowed to rest on Shabbat. Isn't that an observance of mitzvot? Okay? Amarle. So Rabbi Akiva responds, "V'lokeach evet ben hashmashot v'lo hispik lemulo hakatuv medaber." Okay? Well, no, he says Rabbi Akiva. We were talking about a situation where the person purchased a Gentile slave on the eve of Shabbos, and he did not have time to allow him to become circumcised, and that's why it says he must allow him. That's what
normally we make them.
He's not mechuyev in mitzvahs yet.
Normally he would have to have him circumcised. Okay, that's what Rabbi Akiva is saying. He would not,
Right.
in order to maintain. What happens? All right. Hakatu medaber,
The point of the Gemara is Vayinofash ben Amasecha is talking about a servant that you did not refuse to do the Mila, and you're allowed to keep him, and therefore you're allowed to keep him, you have to let him rest. And that's the proof the Gemara wants to read. Vayinofash ben Amasecha, even though he has not done Mila, and one Tana says you shouldn't keep him. The other one says the pasuk is telling you should keep him, but you have to let him rest too.
I would just put a little different spin on that, Reuven. One says you're not allowed to keep him whatsoever. The other says you are allowed to maintain him to a certain point because the pasuk says you're allowed him to rest. But
Right.
then comes the question then after that.
Okay, that I don't think the Gemara's addressed that yet.
Right. The Gemara is going to come back and have to deal with that issue. All right. So what about the Chuli Alma Mihad Vina Fesh Ben Amadcha Be'eved Arel Kativ? Okay. My mashma. Okay. So doesn't that seem to imply that you have as the master a requirement to allow that slave to rest? Talk about a slave who is not circumcised yet, and yet at the same time you allow him to do mitzvot, okay, which allows you to maintain him at least temporarily. What happens? Tanya. Why? Because we have a Braita that teaches Vayinafesh ben Amadcha. What does that deal with? Be'eved arel hakatuv medaber. it must be talking about, or it would seem certainly to talking about a non-circumcised slave. Okay, right? Ata omer be'eved areim. Do you really say that applies to a non-circumcised slave? Oh, a no ela be'eved mahu. Or maybe it's talking about a circumcised slave.
But he's already included mitzvahs.
Right, so therefore he's already chayav mitzvahs, right? Okay. Keshahu omer leman yanuach avdecha va'amatcha kamocha. Okay, because we have another pasuk that clearly defines that you must allow that servant or slave to rest as you do. In other words, the male and female, right, must be allowed to rest in Shabbos as well. Are Eved Mahulamur. That certainly must apply to a circumcised slave. How then do I maintain and understand part of the pasuk that says, "V'inafesh ben amatcha"? Okay, to whom does it apply? Be'eved arel. It must then apply to a non-circumcised slave. Vahager. But what about the fact that we then have another section that says, and the convert? Zegir Toshav. Maybe that applies not to an actual convert, but to somebody who is a foreigner living among other Jews. Okay? To what degree is that person expected to observe certain mitzvot? Okay? I believe
But he's
right,
wasn't without.
right. But there are certain things that, let's say, alien resident, okay, I'll use that term, okay, must observe. If I remember correctly, Tchum Shabbos happened to be one of them. Anyway, you're saying that applies to the alien resident. Oh, no tzedek, or doesn't it not apply to actually a formal convert? Right? Keshehu omer v'gercha asher b'sha'arecha. But when the Torah text says to us, the alien or the non-Jew who's living in your midst, hare ger tzedek amor. There it's talking about a righteous convert. V'hama ani mekayem v'hager. How then do I understand, and through the explanation of the word and the ger, ger toshav, that must seem to apply the resident alien. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi.
It's a ger that's a real ger will become a ger that just
That's simply a non-Jew living in the area where Jews live. No.
So he has to accept the Sheva mitzvahs Gnei Noach.
Right.
A ger toshuv has to accept Sheva mitzvah Gnei. Has to accept Sheva's mitzvah Gnei Noach.
For example, though, like not stealing, right? Things like that.
No avoided Zorah.
Okay. So what happens? Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Okay, he's okay. This is according to Koren. This is a new motif. Okay, halokech eved min ha'oved kochavim. That's my text, right? One who purchases a slave from non-Jew. Velo ratzat lamu, and the slave does not want to be circumcised. Megalgel ino ad yud bet chodesh. You can have him, I like the word megalgel, you can have him sort of hang around. Okay? I think that's a good loose English translation, right? You can have him hang around up to, right? What? All right? Okay, for 12 months. Right? Low mal, but if he doesn't circumcise at that, get circumcised at that
After the
point,
12 months, then
right? Chozer u'mochro le'ovdei,
I get rid of
you must return and sell him back to Gentiles. Amru Rabbanan Kamre de Rav Papa. The rabbi said this before Rav Papa.
about Karchan?
Okay, all right. Kiman, according to whom? Delo ke Rabbi Akiva. This certainly can't be according to the view of Rabbi Akiva, because remember, Rabbi Akiva says, Lo mekaimim, you can't keep him whatsoever. Okay? The Rabbi Akiva, because if it were Rabbi
But
Akiva,
Kiva,
right? Who ha'omer ein mekaimim, right? Who says we can't hold on to him. Amar laho Rav Papa. Rav Papa, however, says, hold on a second. Afilu tema Rabbi Akiva. You might even say that it could be according to Rabbi Akiva. Why? Hani mili heched delo pasta lamilte. Okay, this is where he has not, I'm going to say, made it explicit in terms of any kind of conversion. Aval heched pasta lamilte. But where he has made it explicit that he chooses not to be circumcised, pasque, you let him go. Or I could say, you cut him free. Okay?
where he said at the time he bought him, I will become a Jew, and then he changed his mind, you can keep him for 12 months. Where he says, I don't want, you let him go. You know,
Right.
you sell him.
You sell him back. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Lo pasque le milte, you want to say that he doesn't say anything. That's made
Right.
explicit. Okay. Amar Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana the following. Amrita l'shma'ata kame de Rav Zavi. Okay, I said this particular lesson in front of Rav Zarid, Nahardea, from Nahardea. And Marla, he said to him, Ihachi, if that when Rabbi Akiva said, "Lokeach eved mashot," when Rabbi Akiva suggested it was an example of the purchase of a slave, Erev Shabbos, right? What happened? Mishnei le ha. Okay, right? This was the case. Chada mate tame ka'amar. Okay, this was one of perhaps two reasons that he could have given. Now, further example. Shalach Rabin Mishnei de Rabbi Eli. Rabin sent a shaila, a question, a message, in the name of Rabbi Eli. Bechol Rabu Amruli, all my teachers, in his name, Ezehu Eved Areh Shemutar. What is the situation of an uncircumcised slave that's permitted to maintain him? Zeh shelachcho rabo amanat shelo lemulo. A situation where his master acquired him on the condition that he not become circumcised. Amruha Rabba, the Rav Papa. And when the rabbi said this before Rav Papa, Keman, according to whom? The Loki Rabbi Akiva.
Kiva.
This can't be according to Rabbi Akiva, right? The Rabbi Akiva, because if it were Rabbi Akiva, the Ama Ha'omer, who says, Ein Mekayim, right? You can't maintain it. Amar Laho Rav Papa. So Rav Papa said to them as follows, right? Afilu Tema Rabbi Akiva. Here too, I might even come up with a rationale according to Rabbi Akiva. Hani mili, these words, this situation. Heicha delo atne behedya. It's where they did not make the condition explicitly. Aval heicha, but where they did make the condition atne, they made it conditional. What happens? Amar Rav Shahan. Amrita l'shmata, Amrita Rav Zavid. I said this lesson before Rav Zavid of Nahardea. Va'amar le, and he said to me, Ihachi, that's the case, Kika Amar le Rabbi Akiva, when Rabbi Akiva made this statement, Belokeach Eved Bein Hashmashot, about purchasing the slave on the eve of Shabbos, Velo Hispik Limulo, and he didn't have time to circumcise. Lishne Le Hai. So let that be the other example, right? Ula Ta'amech. Okay, and according to your line of reasoning, Lishne Lehach, let him explicitly teach this. Ela Chad Mitre Utlat Ta'ame Kama. It was one of two or three reasons that he could have said. Okay, now get to another example. Yativ Rabbi Chanina Bar Papi. Rabbi Chanina Bar Papi was sitting. Rabbi Ami, along with Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka, along with Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka, Ki, Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Nafka. They were sitting, one translation could be courtyard, another could be like porch, veranda, things like that. So the three of them were sitting together. They were sitting and discussing. Ir Achat, Haita be'eretz Yisrael. There was a certain city in the land of Israel, Velo Ratsu Avdei Lamun, and its slaves did not want to become circumcised. V'galgalu imahem ad shnei maseh chodesh, and they allowed them to hang around for 12 months. V'chazru umachrum la'avdei kochavim, and then they went and they sold them to other Gentiles. Come on, according to whom? Ki Haitan, according to that particular Tana, the Tanya who taught as follows: Halokeach Eved min ha'oved, one who purchased a slave from a Gentile. Velo ratzal, may choose not to become circumcised. Migalgeli no shnei masar chodesh, lets him hang around for 12 months. Lo mal, didn't become circumcised. Chazru machrola of de kochavim. We go back and we sell him to the Gentiles. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, what does he say? Ein mash'in oto be'eretz Yisrael mepnei hefsei taharo. That we don't allow that Gentile to remain because of the potential loss that could occur to the Jews of produce that could become tameh. Okay, because if the Gentile slave touches that any produce, it immediately becomes tameh.
It's Tomei.
Why don't we mal him Bal Karchai? Said before.
Good question.
Good
Why does he agree about the thing is that
As without
he's not going to consent. He still needs to have.
So apparently, we may have had different views. You see, right? That yes, you could do it by equipment. Maybe others felt that you couldn't if it was an adult male slave.
Speaking of
Here we're talking about where he bought him Amanash Shalola. Maybe normally you would say he could be Mal and Balkorcha, where he made a condition. I'm buying you on the condition that I'm not going to make a bris milah. Then
Good point.
good story.
Thank you. Okay, that's why we say it's a collective. Okay, so what happens? Omer ein mashino to beretz Yisrael. We don't allow him even to remain in the land of Israel, he says.
right.
And if it's a city on the border, right? Ein mashin so-called ikar. We don't even allow him to remain there whatsoever. Why? Shema yishma davar v'yelech v'yomer lechavero oved kochavim. Lest we're that Gentile slave know something about the fortifications, the situation of those boundary cities, and they will go tell to other Gentiles, right? and reveal secrets.
All the secrets.
Right.
You have Arabs in the government.
Okay.
Asking.
Okay, that's the Tanya. Now a new piece, a new motif, a new bright. Rabbi Hanania beno shel Rabban Gamliel Omer. What does he say? Mipnei ma gerim bisman hazeh me'unin v'yisurin ba'in eleihem. What is the reason that at this time that converts are tormented and have hardships and they come upon you? Mipnei shelo kimu sheva mitzvot bnei Noah, because they didn't observe even the minimum of the 7 mitzvot.
Before they became Gera.
Rabbi Yossi Omer, Rabbi Yossi, ger shenit gayer, a convert, a person who goes through conversion, kikatan shenolad dami. It's like a newborn, almost a minor. In other words, they break off the formal relationship with parents.
And therefore he should not be responsible.
So therefore, he should not be punished for what he did before.
Maybe.
Therefore,
Gershon is Gaia dummy. He's
Right.
cutting
Why
Shanoah.
should they therefore suffer?
Right.
Because we might say that they are not punctilious. I use that in terms of the details of mitzvah observance, like a Jew. Okay? You don't like that. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. You're not the only one who apparently didn't like
obviously that's why there's more opinions.
it. Right. But Hanan, Omer, Mishum Rabbi Elazar. And he says, Rabbi Hanan, in the name of Rabbi, She'ein osin me ahava ela meyirah. Okay, that they observe out of fear rather than out of love. I don't know if I like that answer either. Okay, acherim omrim, says others, right? Mipnei sheshahu atzmam mikanes tachat kanfei hastina, because they delayed, okay, in becoming.
Yeah, but then that's who knows when he's got much trouble.
Okay, the point is when we see multiple efforts, okay, multiple explanations, okay, generally you can assume that it means either, okay, or there is no, or the Ravina, she felt they just needed to give all the various possibilities, but there was no clear single answer. Okay, Amar Rabbi Abahu, v'itema Rabbi Hanina, Ma'ikra. Do we have a pasuk that even explains it? Yeshalem Hashem alcha utehi maskotcha shlema me'im Hashem Elokei Yisrael v'chasod v'gomer. Yeah, comes from Boaz, that you will be rewarded in a sense for your deeds, and the reward will be full from Hashem, for having come under the tree. And therefore we finish that. And tomorrow on Mem Tet, we actually start at Mem Tet.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
This is the why you have to learn the taboos already. And when you learn by yourself, you the wrong shot. You wouldn't
Right.
get it correct.
Well, that's why I said, I explained that we really just primarily look at the pshat here, and we appreciate everybody's participation. Right?
Very good.
Thank you. I enjoyed your share very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Shem, we'll see you.
Leaving?
Leaving later today.
All right. Thanks, Kam Shalom.
Have a
Bye.
safe trip.
Shalom, ah.
Have a safe trip.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Okay.
Okay. Now back to the real work, right?
Yeah. Back to work.
I told my kids I would not see them now because I assume they should be on the road already.
Oh, they're driving all the way to White Plains?
Yeah.
It's a long trip.
It is.
It's nice. We had the nicest place